Most people believe ancient Greece collapsed because of wars, invasions, or weak leaders. That's not true. Ancient Greece didn't fall on a battlefield. It collapsed on paper, with ink, with signatures, with a single debt decision that slowly poisoned an entire civilization. And the most dangerous part is this. At the time, it looked like the smartest decision they could possibly make. Imagine waking up one morning in ancient Athens. The sun rises over marble temples. Markets are full. Ships arrive with grain and silver. Philosophers debate freedom, justice, and democracy. This is the most advanced society on earth. But beneath the beauty, something invisible is growing. Something silent. Something far more destructive than any invading army. Debt, not personal debt. State debt. And once that door opened, there was no way to close it again. In the early days, Greek city-states hated debt. They feared it. They understood something modern societies often forget. Debt shifts power. Originally, Greek economies were simple: land, labor, trade, and silver coinage. Citizens owned land. Farmers worked their soil. Political power was tied directly to property ownership and military service. But wars changed everything. As conflicts became larger and more frequent, city-states needed money fast. Soldiers needed to be paid. Ships needed to be built. Walls needed to be repaired. Taxes alone weren't enough. So Greek leaders made a decision that would reshape history. They borrowed. At first, borrowing seemed harmless. We'll take a loan now, win the war, pay it back later. That logic has destroyed more empires than swords ever did. The problem wasn't just borrowing, it was who they borrowed from. Wealthy elites, private lenders, temples, foreign financiers. Interest was introduced, and once interest exists, debt is no longer temporary, it becomes permanent. Farmers began borrowing money to survive bad harvests. When they couldn't repay, their land became collateral. When land was gone, their freedom followed. Citizens slowly turned into debt slaves. This wasn't theory. This was law. If you failed to repay, your body could be seized, your family could be sold, your political rights vanished. Democracy didn't die suddenly. It was hollowed out. Because debt doesn't just take money, it takes voice. As wealth concentrated in fewer hands, power followed it. Political decisions stopped serving citizens. They began serving creditors. Athens, once proud and independent, became financially fragile. Every major decision now required money they didn't have. Then came the moment that sealed their fate. During the Peloponnesian War, Athens doubled down on debt. Instead of reducing spending or negotiating peace, they borrowed even more. Why? Because admitting financial weakness felt like surrender. Debt creates denial. The more you owe, the harder it becomes to stop. Athens mortgaged its future to maintain its present image. And here's where the single decision changes everything. Athens chose to transform its allies into debt payers. The Delian League was originally a defensive alliance. Member states contributed ships or money for mutual protection. But Athens changed the rules. They demanded money instead of ships. They centralized the treasury in Athens. They spent it however they wanted. This wasn't alliance anymore. It was financial control. Athens used debt obligations to dominate other Greek states. And in doing so, they created resentment, rebellion, and eventual collapse. Because debt doesn't create loyalty. It creates enemies. As repayments failed, Athens responded with force. Military suppression replaced diplomacy, and war expenses exploded even further. Debt fed war. War fed debt. This cycle is fatal to any civilization. Eventually, the system broke. Inflation rose, confidence collapsed, trade slowed, political chaos followed. Athens lost the war, lost its empire, lost its democracy. Not because their soldiers were weak, but because their financial foundation was rotten. Sparta didn't defeat Athens with better ideas. They waited while Athens destroyed itself economically. This is the part most history books rush past. Debt doesn't announce collapse. It delays it. It creates the illusion of strength while draining the future. Now pause for a moment. If this kind of silent collapse interests you, if you want to understand how powerful civilizations actually fall, not through explosions, but through decisions, this is exactly what silent collapse exists for. Subscribe now, because the patterns never change, only the names do. After Athens, the same debt logic spread across Greece. City-states copied the model. Borrow, expand, dominate, collapse. Eventually, Greece became so financially fractured that it couldn't resist external powers. Enter Rome. Rome didn't conquer Greece because Greece was weak culturally or intellectually. Rome inherited a broken financial landscape. Debt had already done the damage. Greek thinkers warned about this. Plato spoke about inequality. Aristotle warned that extreme wealth concentration destroys stability. But warnings don't stop systems once they're profitable. Debt benefited the elite, and systems rarely change for the sake of those without power. This single debt decision didn't just destroy ancient Greece, it set a blueprint the world still follows. Borrow to survive. Borrow to grow. Borrow to hide decline. And when collapse finally comes, it's blamed on something else. Wars, leaders, enemies, rarely debt. Because debt collapse is quiet. It happens in contracts, in balance sheets, in delayed consequences, and by the time people feel it, it's already irreversible. Ancient Greece teaches us something uncomfortable. The smartest societies are often the most confident, and confidence makes debt feel safe. Until it isn't. Empires don't fall when they borrow. They fall when borrowing becomes normal. If you want to keep understanding how civilizations actually end, how power shifts silently, and why history keeps repeating itself, stay with Silent Collapse, because the most dangerous collapses never make noise. And here's the part almost no one talks about. After Greece collapsed under its own debt, something strange happened. The system didn't disappear, it evolved. Debt didn't fail, it proved how powerful it was. Rome watched Greece very closely. They studied Greek philosophy, politics, and economics, and they learned one critical lesson. Debt can weaken enemies before armies ever move. So Rome adopted debt carefully, slowly, strategically. At first, Rome avoided the Greek mistake. They limited borrowing, they controlled lenders, they protected small landowners. But success creates temptation. As Rome expanded, costs exploded. More soldiers, more roads, more provinces to control. Sound familiar? Eventually, Rome made the same decision Greece once made. Borrow now, deal with consequences later. And just like Greece, debt began reshaping society. Small farmers disappeared, land concentrated in elite hands, political power followed wealth, the same silent pattern. What ancient Greece teaches us isn't just a historical lesson, it's a warning about human behavior. Because debt doesn't corrupt instantly. It corrupts gradually. At first, it feels like progress, more resources, more expansion, more comfort. But debt changes priorities. Long-term stability is sacrificed for short-term survival. Future generations pay for present decisions. Athens didn't think they were destroying democracy. They thought they were protecting it. That's what makes debt so dangerous. It disguises itself as responsibility. And here's the most unsettling truth. No civilization in history has ever escaped this cycle once debt became its foundation. Not Greece, not Rome, not empires that came later. Every collapse begins with a promise. Just one more loan, just one more extension, just one more emergency. And emergencies never end. Ancient Greece didn't fall because it lacked intelligence. It fell because intelligence was used to justify unsustainable choices. Debt allowed leaders to delay hard decisions, and delay is often more destructive than failure. By the time the consequences arrived, it was too late to reverse them, and collapse didn't happen overnight. People still lived their lives, markets still opened, temples still stood. That's why most people didn't notice. Collapse feels normal until it doesn't. This is why studying silent collapses matters more than studying wars. Wars are symptoms. Debt is disease. And if you listen closely to history, it keeps repeating the same sentence. Power doesn't disappear suddenly. It erodes, quietly, legally, financially. Ancient Greece lost its future the moment it chose debt over reform, and the world has been repeating that decision ever since. If you're still listening, you already understand something most people never will. Civilizations don't die screaming, they die signing agreements, And that is why silent collapse exists, to study what history whispers, not what it shouts. Because the most important lessons are never taught loudly. They're buried in debt.